Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here. As you may or may not know, this event that we are having today includes 5 panel members, all female lawyers here within the Houston area, and we are very excited to have all of them and all of you present with us today. Just a little bit of background, this event is being hosted by Houston Young Lawyers Association. And Houston Young Lawyers Association is a young professionals organization, and it's a specialty bar association. So the organization consists of attorneys who are 36 years old or younger, or in their first 5 years as a licensed lawyer, as well as law students. Many people don't know that. Most legal organizations do not allow law students to join, but HYLA does. So if you're currently a law student or about to be a law student, remember that. And it's a great organization to be a part of, and there's lots of different opportunities that come with it. The mission of HYLA is to learn, lead, network, and serve. As many of you probably know, the month of March has been presidentially proclaimed as Women's History Month. And so the purpose of Women's History Month is to reflect on what's often the overlooked contributions of women to our country and its history, and to really focus on and honor trailblazing women who have led in the past and continue to lead the way for change, equality, and opportunity for all women. Myself, as a member of the Women's Lawyer Committee for HYLA, as well as my other fellow committee members, wanted to take an opportunity to host this event and celebrate Women's History Month, and have this opportunity for all of you to speak with this panel of very accomplished women lawyers that all have very diverse backgrounds, different practice areas, and different paths that they followed and that led them to where they sit today. So I will have plenty of topics and questions to discuss with everyone and with our panelists, but please feel free to submit your own questions should you have any, or should any come up as we're speaking, and go ahead and type them in the chat function of the webinar. And we'll be sure that either I direct a question to one of the panelists to get answered, or if we can't, we'll at least get you a typed back answer in the chat. Before we go any further, I should probably go ahead and introduce myself and introduce you all to our panel members who are with us here today. So my name is Jenna Rudoff, and I am an attorney. I graduated from South Texas College of Law in downtown Houston in 2012. I currently am an assistant United States attorney, or what's known as a federal prosecutor, for the Northern District of Texas in the Dallas office. I'm assigned to public corruption and fraud cases, and I also handle violent crime and major offenders. Just a little bit of background about me. I started out as a state prosecutor in the Fort Bend County District Attorney's Office, where I handled crimes against children, including physical and sexual abuse of children, capital murder, and human trafficking. I also have worked for a plaintiff's personal injury firm in the Houston area as well, where I handled catastrophic injuries and wrongful death cases. I'm also a professor at South Texas College of Law, where I teach mock trial litigation course, and I also coach national advocacy teams through the advocacy program. Aside from HYLA, I'm involved in several other nonprofits and legal organizations throughout the community, including Houston Bar Foundation, Texas Bar Foundation, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and I'm also a board member for South Texas Alumni. More importantly, on to our panelists. Here we have with us today, I'd like to introduce everyone to Judge Toni Wallace. Judge Wallace graduated from South Texas College of Law in downtown Houston in 2003. She currently serves as the presiding judge of County Court at Law number 4, which is in Fort Bend County, Texas. She recently served a 2-year term as the administrative judge for all the county courts in Fort Bend County. Judge Wallace began her legal career as a defense attorney. She practiced in civil courts all across the state. She also was a state prosecutor in Fort Bend County, Texas for about 5 years. And in 2016, Judge Wallace, in fact, made history when she became the first African-American female judge ever appointed to a county court in Fort Bend County. And that's where she served as the inaugural judge for County Court at Law number 5. In 2018, Judge Wallace made history again when she was among the first African Americans ever elected to a court in Fort Bend County. So welcome, Judge Wallace. We appreciate you being here and sharing your time with us. We also have with us Lauren Waddell. Lauren graduated from South Texas College of Law in 2002. She is the founder of Waddell Law Firm PC in Houston, Texas, which primarily focuses on family law matters, including divorce, custody, marital property division, and matters related to paternity and child support. She's licensed to practice both state and federally, and she's in fact board certified with a specialization in family law. She's actively engaged in leadership roles throughout the community, and she has served as the chair of the Houston Bar Association Family Law Section. She served as the president of the Texas Women's Lawyers Association and the president of the Association of Women Attorneys in Houston. She also currently serves on the board of directors for Baylor Women's Council, Orange Show Center for Visionary Arts, and she is also captain of the Houston Rodeo Youth Horse Show Committee. So thank you, Lauren, for being here with us today. We appreciate it. We also have here with us Huma Ali. Huma graduated from South Texas College of Law, and you notice a theme here, in 2012. She is a commercial litigator, and she currently works for the firm Munch, Hardt, Kropf, and Harr. As a commercial litigator, she represents a diverse group of individuals and businesses in handling their pre-litigation, trial, appellate, and arbitration matters in both state and federal court. Her practice focuses on resolving complex commercial litigation and appellate matters, which involve breach of contract, shareholder and partnership disputes, business torts, employment litigation, all of which cover a wide range of industries, including energy, banking and financial, transportation, manufacturing, and real estate. Huma, thank you for being here with us today. We appreciate it. We also have with us Nicole DeBorde-Hochglaube. Nicole graduated from University of Houston Law School in 1993. She started her career as a state prosecutor in Harris County, where she worked from 1994 until 2002. As a prosecutor, she handled all types of different cases, ranging from misdemeanors all the way up to murders and everything in between. Since 2002, Nicole has been in private practice. She has her own firm here in the Houston area. And she does criminal defense trial and post-conviction work, practicing in both state and federal courts. Many of her cases include high profile and media-worthy cases, in case you've seen her on the news. She often serves as a legal analyst on major national TV networks, including Fox, CNN, MSNBC, and was an associate producer of a documentary movie about Michael Morton, who, if you're not familiar with the Michael Morton story, he's a Texas man who was wrongfully convicted of murder in 1987. And after serving 25 years in prison for the crime he did not commit, he was found actually innocent, and the court overturned his conviction in 2011 and has fully released him. Nicole also serves on various boards at the state and national levels, including the National Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, and she served as past president of the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association. Thank you for being here with us today, Nicole. We really appreciate your time. We also have Reem, and I'm going to mess up the last name, so I apologize ahead of time, Abdelrazik. Reem graduated from Georgetown University Law School in 2017. She's a fourth-year associate working in the capital markets and securities practice group in the Houston office of Haynes and Boone. She's a transactional attorney, and she spends majority of her focus on her cases between corporate, what we call mergers and acquisitions, and energy finance matters, including commodities trading, commercial lending, and acquisition and disposition of oil and gas properties. So that's a lot of information and probably a lot of terms and words that might not completely make sense at this point in time, but it is just to show you how well accomplished, extremely diverse, and different each of our panelist members are in their path to their profession and also where they sit today. So thank you all for being here. I want to first go to Lauren, if you don't mind. How did you first decide to go to law school? What was your initial reason for wanting to pursue a career in law?
So my family, actually, my aunt was special needs, and my grandfather set up a trust for her. And so I was 10 when my grandfather passed away. And so I remember kind of all of the issues around that and noticing that lawyers were very important and that lawyers could help families. And so this trust was established for my aunt, who lived in a residential home her whole life, adult life, ever since I can remember. And my aunt was financially taken care of. My mom and my uncle had to make decisions for her, but never had to come out of pocket financially. And so initially I thought I was going to go to law school to do trust and estates and help families the way I saw lawyers help mine. But when I went into my studies, I realized there's so many paths in law, and I really loved my family law courses and my marital property courses. And I took family law advocacy at South Texas and had a mock custody battle, and I won custody for dad. And so ended up leaving law school with a different view of helping families, but in a different way. But that's initially what inspired me, was that I saw that truly lawyers do help people, and that was the driving force.
Thank you for sharing that. And something you said that's really interesting is you went into law school with the intention of doing or liking one area of law, and ultimately ended up doing something completely different. And I think that's one thing that young lawyers or aspiring lawyers don't understand, that there's all different kinds of paths you can take, either before law school, while you're in law school, and even once you're out into private practice and once you're licensed as a lawyer. Judge Wallace, I know you have kind of had some different backgrounds in areas of practice throughout your career. Can you kind of touch on and explain to the audience how you transitioned from civil defense to a prosecutor and then to becoming a judge?
I can even go farther back than that, Jenna. I actually majored in journalism. I graduated from the University of Texas in Austin, and seriously thought I was going to become the next Oprah. That was my path, and I was headed in Oprah's direction. And life said otherwise. I got a job as a TV producer or news producer, and quickly learned that was not the life for me, and was actually encouraged by my father to go to law school. It was not a dream or a goal of mine, but it combined what I had already learned and experienced as a journalist, which was listening, reading, and really just a knowledge and a thirst for people and stories, because that's really what lawyers do. We listen to people's stories. We use the knowledge that we have as researchers when we research the law, and we apply that person's story or their facts to what the law is, and we help them come up with a solution. So it's that when people say, well, I want to be a lawyer, they don't always understand all the different components and the skill set that you have to be a good lawyer. And so a journalist can actually become a very good lawyer because you have that skill set from the outset. So I say that to say, for those of you who are out there who think, well, I have to major in criminal justice or pre-law or any of those political science, any of those kind of majors in high school or in college, you don't. You can truly learn any type of area or field and then concentrate your law practice in that particular area. So my path was not, it's very unorthodox, but it brought me into this final destination, well, I guess the destination for now, as a judge. And so through law school, I learned kind of the skill set of being able to be a trial lawyer. I was very active in the advocacy program, and I actually did a lot of moot court. I didn't do mock trial. I did moot court competitions, which really just gives you that skill of being able to stand in front of a panel of judges or a single judge and argue your side of the case. But the thing that you have to remember is you have to prepare for both sides. So you got to know your opponent's argument just as well as you know yours. So that was really the pathway that led me into being a judge. I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. And actually, when I was in law school, I decided I wanted to be a mommy lawyer. I did not want to have a high profile, high paying, I will say that, job at a larger firm where I would have to sacrifice a lot of my time. I wanted to have more of a work-life balance, and I knew that coming out of law school. And ironically, I got married while I was in law school and had a baby before I graduated from law school. So my mommy lawyer goal was very firmly set in place by the time I got my law license. But it really allowed for me to develop as a lawyer on my own terms, and not in a way that everybody else thought that I should do it. And so I would encourage you to think outside the box, and become a lawyer if that's what you want to do. Become a lawyer on your own terms and in your own way, because for as many different lawyers that you will meet in the field, there are that many different areas of the law, and you really can develop your own practice in your own way.
Thank you, Judge Wallace. And now that you've helped us establish that pretty much the answer to every question as a lawyer is, it depends. I want to ask Reem a little bit about what kinds of things did you do, because there's so many backgrounds that can lead someone into law school or in different areas of the law, depending on what they like or what they don't like, or even what they're good at. What are some things that you did in preparing to go to law school, whether it be class-wise or job-wise, that you feel like really benefited your future career as a lawyer?
Yeah, so ironically, I actually started in kind of the same place that Judge Wallace did. I was a broadcast journalist and, just newspaper journalist major at SMU. And I do think, I echo everything she said, that you don't need to have any sort of pre-law background to do well in law school. In fact, I think being being a journalist in my past life really was one of the biggest preparers for going to law school. Maybe people don't know this necessarily if you're still, on the younger side, but law school is a lot of essay writing, it's a lot of analysis, a lot of research. And being a journalist, those are all skills that you're learning at that outset. And like Judge Wallace said as well, it's about analyzing people and getting to know people and getting to know their problems and reporting it in a hopefully, intelligent and respectful manner. And I think that, again, really assisted in my law school career. I really attribute that to why I did well in law school. I also would say in a more less, school setting, I didn't know anything about law school whenever I first was applying even. I think I'm probably the first person in my family to go to college outside of Egypt. So my family's from Egypt, and so I'm the first one to go to an American university. So anything around that was very different, and the whole process was very different. And I remember my technique was to Google pretty much everything that I could Google. I literally put into the search engine of how to do well in law school. Like what do I need to do? What books do I need to get? How do I study? What am I going to expect? Because I had no idea what to even expect whenever I started. And there are some forums. If anyone's looking for. In my day, Top Law School was the forum to go to that gave some excellent advice on the supplements and how to down to how to organize your outline for law school was super helpful. So apart from actually, having some skills outside of the law and just really embracing whatever it is that you're doing before you go to law school and honing that to the best that you can, because I do think whatever that is going to assist you in some way in the law, because the law is so, as people have said already, you can really tailor it to how you want to tailor it. And you can really use whatever skills that you already have there. The internet is going to be a good friend of yours.
Yeah, especially during COVID when we're doing everything via internet, which hopefully it won't be like that forever. But thank you for sharing. Reem, one thing you said, and I think probably the majority of the panelists here can attest to the same experience, is being kind of a first generation lawyer or first generation college grad or first generation female professional. And with that comes, of course, a lot of great things, but then it's really hard to navigate that path when no one before you have done it. Nicole, did you have that experience within your family or starting your law career of being one of the first, generational lawyers or female professionals?
Absolutely. And I didn't know any lawyers really. I have an uncle that was a lawyer that I kind of knew he was a lawyer, but I didn't know what he did. And more particularly, I mean, pretty much what I thought lawyers did, I saw on TV. And, you know, I really hadn't started with the plan that in college that I wanted to go to law school. But, you know, as I actually have an accounting undergraduate degree of all things, and was particularly interested in science. And as I started hearing more about, you know, different possible opportunities out there for careers in law, I decided to go to law school. And then the funny thing is that I thought, okay, well, with my accounting background, I will go into corporate law because that seems like a perfect fit. And what I am doing now, while accounting is certainly useful for some of the cases that we handle, is really about the farthest thing from corporate law in many circumstances. But you know, I ended up going to the Harris County DA's office. You know, got hooked on that. When I got there, and it's funny that Reem talks about Googling. There was no Googling in 1993 to figure anything out. And so it was a lot of learning as you go. And there were a lot of men, you know, and quite frankly, a lot of white men who were my supervisors at the time, and all of law enforcement, you know, was in a similar position. And it was a lot of trial by fire. And, you know, and persistence really for me and a lot of my female colleagues, you know, you just try and try again. And then ultimately in 2002, when I decided to leave the DA's office, I didn't dislike my job at all. What was happening was it was going to be changing, and I was going to be shifting into a supervisory position where there was a whole lot more paperwork and a whole lot less of what I had been doing, and was not ready to make that kind of shift. So I went thinking, well, I'll open my own practice and see how I like it. And within a week, I knew I was home. And just the people that we have a chance to meet, and you know, the stories that we have a chance to hear really have been life-changing for me. And so that's kind of my wandering path.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing. And one thing, you know, Nicole, that you kind of talked and touched on is a lot of trial by fire, right? I think everyone on this panel can say, whether in their personal or professional lives, particularly professional, there's a lot of trial by fire, and there's a lot of kind of having to figure it out as you go. And so, you know, Huma, I would ask you, is there anything that you, looking back, maybe you didn't know at the time because you were doing trial by fire, but looking back, is there anything you think that you did while in law school that really helped you prepare to be a practicing lawyer, or helped you establish relationships or networks with people that have really benefited you later in your career, and are the types of things you would really suggest and encourage young law students or lawyers to pursue?
Absolutely. So like several of the panelists, I also did not plan on going to law school, and I was the first lawyer in my family. So when I started, it was kind of a, you know, learn as you go. I Googled a lot of stuff, but I realized early on that law school, I started talking to just family friends and lawyers in the community to realize that a clerkship and an externship is a way to network and also to learn more of the practice of law. So during law school, I clerked for a firm every year. It was a construction law firm. And that's where I really feel like I learned the practice of law. I met a lot of people. I was able to apply what I used in law school to help me figure out what area of law I wanted to practice and just develop and refine my skills as a lawyer. So I highly recommend everyone doing clinics, externships, internships to get the practice, to learn the practice of law, which is completely different than academia, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And for those that aren't familiar, and I'm sure many are, but externships and clerkships, those are all just other words for just internship opportunities for people that are in law school. And honestly, there's a lot of firms, and Lauren, you may even do this sometimes, that will allow college students to do internships or some type of like filing or work within the office just to get kind of a feel for what legal practice is like, and sort of see if they like it. Is that something that you ever did or you recommend to people either in college or in law school?
So I absolutely did that in college. I clerked for, I firm. It was a pre-law class at Baylor, actually, that brought the opportunity to us. And part of that class was clerking with lawyers, and they already had local lawyers ready and willing to take us on. One summer while I was in college, I just went, I happened to be home, and I was like, I want to go work for a little bit at a local law firm, and did. And so I encourage anybody that's really considering this to just be around lawyers, just be around the office, soak it in. And who cares if you're just filing papers? I mean, you're learning things, you're actually looking at some documents that are new to you, and you're taking it in. So I absolutely did that. And then my first job, I actually clerked, hadn't gone to law school yet, but I actually was a job after I graduated from Baylor with Winstead, now Winstead. It was Winstead, Sechrist and Minnick at the time in Dallas. And I worked for a whole year there before I went to law school. And I went out to lunch with the lawyers. I went out to lunch with the paralegals. I went out to lunch with the legal assistants and secretaries, and really just hung out with lawyers, because as many women on this panel, I didn't have family members that were lawyers. I didn't, really know what the practice of law was about. And so when I was going to these various firms, I would see different practice areas and different styles and different sizes of law firms, and just kind of, getting a grip in my mind around what is this thing called the practice of law. So I absolutely encourage it. I think that would be the sooner the better. So yes.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think I didn't even realize, as much as I do now, how many not only private firms do that, but also government jobs do that as well. I work for the United States Attorney's Office, the Department of Justice, and they hire college interns to work in the office. We also hire what we call the gap year individuals who have graduated college but not sure yet if they want to go to law school, maybe go to law school, they can come work in the office. And those are things I didn't even realize. I know, Nicole, you probably experienced, and Judge Wallace, you too, that at the DA's office, they allow high school interns, they allow college interns. And I think all of us would encourage you to seek out those opportunities, because like Lauren said, it's not just about, you're not learning the law, right? That comes later. That comes in school, and that comes through different opportunities. You're learning what it's like to be a lawyer. And I think all the panelists would tell you that being a lawyer is not only a profession, for some reason it becomes kind of a lifestyle. And you end up spending a lot of your time with lawyers, especially as women, where we're leaning on each other, reaching out to each other, supporting each other, engaging in organizations together. So it's really good to get that opportunity to experience it, not just on the professional side, but the personal as well. What about, and you kind of touched, Lauren, about like mentoring and networks. Reem, can you talk a little bit about, because you mentioned earlier being the first one even to attend a university outside of, I think you said Egypt, right?
Yes. So I'm guessing the question is going to be towards like mentoring and how I found that, basically.
Well, no, actually, yeah, I mean, obviously that's very important too, but actually my question is with regards to financial situation. I mean, how did you handle having family, pretty much coming from another country, a different culture that maybe not as in tune with this and taking on the financial burden of it? Because I think we all can agree there is a financial aspect to it, whether we like it or not. We all might die with it, I don't know. But but can you kind of explain how you pursued financial opportunities and how you were able to handle securing the finances to pursue law, even if it wasn't something you thought you could originally do?
Yeah, so I was lucky in undergrad that I was able to get a few scholarships. So I did not have to pay, I think, a chunk of what I would have had to pay originally for undergrad. So whatever didn't go there, I sort of cycled away to law school. And then, obviously law school is so very expensive. So there are a number of loans that you can apply for. And yeah, I just kind of went through the loan process of getting that underway. And I also, you work hard enough at law school, maybe not, the first year, you might, depending on what school you go to and what your grades are in undergrad and all of that, you might not get a scholarship coming out whenever you first go into law school your first year, but you do a good job your first year, likely they're going to give you one going forward. So again, that helps. But I think most people are going to say that they had to apply for loans, which is the unfortunate reality of it. If you're lucky enough, again, I was able to do a clerkship at my current firm both summers, which was actually a paid clerkship. So that helps in terms, I was in DC, so that helps at least with covering the cost of living over there, which was still very steep. So there were some, sources of money coming in that were not loans that I had the opportunity to be able to have. But I think at the end of the day, unless I didn't know some other alternatives that there was, most people are probably going to say that they have to take some loans out to be able to pay for it.
Yeah, and I think it's really good that you said that most people just have to take loans out to pay for it. I mean, I don't know if younger generations are thinking, well, I don't want to take on all this debt. Not everyone has this kind of debt. I think it's something that's very normal, especially when it comes to law school, and that it's kind of an investment in your future. And it's something that, as we've seen in COVID, where people have lost jobs and, markets have been cut and changed and things are just happening differently. I think most lawyers can say that they're still busy and able to find work and able to continue to pursue their career, because as you guys have touched on, there's so many different areas within the law. Pretty much any area you think about or any industry you think about has a legal component to it. So whether we like it or not, we're busy. And so, yeah, I think that it's really great that it's just, you mentioned that loans are part of it, right? So in law school, and Nicole, I'll kind of point this one to you. How did you decide when you were in law school, or when did you decide that you wanted to be not only just a prosecutor, but I also kind of want you to touch a little bit on being a trial lawyer versus, I know some people on the panel are transactional or corporate lawyers. And so I kind of want to explain the difference between the two and how you knew you wanted to be in the courtroom and doing trial work.
Again, more that winding path for me, it was almost a little bit of sort of living and learning. And when I actually left law school, I went to work for a small boutique civil firm. And I had several friends who left law school and had gone directly to a DA's office, and we'd get together and they were telling me about all the things they were doing in the courtroom. And at that point, as I think is pretty normal, I'm making copies and answering interrogatories and doing document production. And, here they are telling me about some motion that they argued. And, here I am, 5 lawyers deep at the back of a line, just looking at someone arguing a motion. So, ultimately, it was really pretty silly. I had no idea how coveted the jobs were at the DA's office to get into the courtroom. But I decided one day that I was just going to leave my law firm and just go get a job at the DA's office. And so, walked in, applied, and think, okay, I'm ready to go. Fortunately, I made it through the interview process, but there's a lot of people out there who kind of know what they want. I didn't. I kind of learned from doing other things that I liked it, but I liked hearing what my friends were doing even more, and then ended up in the courtroom.
And you were doing, for those that aren't aware, as a state prosecutor, so you're bringing cases on behalf of the state of Texas for people that have violated criminal laws. And so the result of that is either some type of probation or maybe jail time or things like that. And so that's criminal litigation, right? But we also have commercial or civil litigation, which is something that's completely different, even though the word litigator is still used in it. And Judge Wallace, I know you started out as a civil litigator before becoming a criminal prosecutor. So can you explain a little bit what life is like on a day-to-day for a civil litigator?
A lot of paperwork. And it's funny, this difference, the contrast between civil law and criminal law. But with civil litigation, you are dealing with a lot more paperwork, and there is a lot more interaction with your with the opposing party, because you have to exchange a lot of information before you actually get to the courtroom. So with the civil litigation, it starts off with requests for disclosure, requests for admissions, interrogatories, which are written questions, requests for production, produce this information. So the civil lawsuit starts off like, give me all the information you have so I can figure out whether or not, you know, this is going to go anywhere in terms of this lawsuit. And the contrast with the criminal law is like, it starts off just like action, like, let's go to court, let's talk about, you know, there's a little bit of paperwork because you're dealing with an offense report, you're dealing with maybe some evidence that is paper wise, but the criminal law, it moves a lot faster, it's a lot sexier than civil law. But civil litigation is for the person who pays attention to detail. Civil litigation is for the person who likes to argue their point, down to like dotting the I's and crossing the T's, because civil litigators are very, well, one word for them is petty, but another nicer word for them is thorough. And so civil litigators spend a lot of time combing through documents, making sure that the letter of the law is followed, and then their arguments are a lot more specific and tailored towards very specific matters. They're trying to prove certain points, and they file a lot of motions in order, and motions are just suggestions, right? They're petitions to the court for the judge to make a certain ruling in their favor. So a lot of motions are filed in civil litigation trying to really kind of fine tune what their argument is. And a lot of civil litigation does not end up in a trial. A lot of civil litigation actually settles out of court. But the ones that go to trial, they are in trial for a couple of days because civil litigators are thorough, very thorough. They like to show all the evidence.
Thank you, Judge Wallace, for explaining that. And Huma, I know you're a civil litigator, so petty is not what we're calling you. And those of us—
No, I didn't say petty. I just heard somebody else use that terminology, but I don't think that's true.
Yeah, no, not at all. And for those of us that do criminal law too, you know, we can attest to the fact that although it's not as much paper, it's kind of knowing the law and having to do it on your feet rather than as much motion and writing practice as maybe a civil litigator. So both litigation, criminal and civil, have a lot of similar aspects. They operate in a different way, which is kind of one of the interesting things about it. And you have different opportunities to be in the courtroom or do writings and motions and things like that. But Reem, you actually are what's considered a transactional lawyer, right? So
Yes.
Can you kind of explain to the audience what's the difference between, because it's civil, meaning it's not, you know, you're dealing with businesses and individuals, and it's private, it's not on behalf of the government or on behalf of the state, but what is a transactional lawyer and how is that different from a civil litigator?
Yeah, that's a great question. So transactional law is really dealing with contracts, and there are different subsets of what kinds of contracts you'll be dealing with, but it's putting together deals. For me in particular, it's going to be a lot of so corporate mergers and acquisitions, which can be either a buyer wants to buy the corporate assets of another company, or, you know, that whole company, not just the assets, but the stock and the whole company itself. They want to have that come over, and figuring out the deals and the mechanics of what that is. Or, you know, another aspect of that can be, you know, doing financing. So I deal with energy financing, and so that can be a lot of, you know, energy, you know, we're on Houston, so oil and gas touches pretty much everything we do here. A lot of the lenders and borrowers that we deal with are oil and gas focused, or, you know, oil and gas, either they're a producer who wants to start drilling on a well and they need the money to start doing that, and so they're going to a lender, and again, getting that paperwork put together. And it's a lot of negotiating with the other side. It can also get pretty petty with people, you know, debating whether the semantics of a sentence really means what we're trying to make it mean. And it's just a lot of reading contracts and trying to, I liken it to if you like puzzles, which I love puzzles, so this is why I happen to be a transactional lawyer, but trying to make all the pieces of this deal fit together in a way that makes sense and in a way that has both sides getting what they want, even though what they want might seem like almost opposite ends of the spectrum. So it's really trying to fit those pieces together, trying to make the language work, trying to find a compromise in the middle ground, which I've heard, you know, there's a lot of litigators here, so I don't want to say that it's kind of the opposite of what litigation is, which is a lot of, you know, there's almost a zero sum, one person wins and the other person loses type of aspect to it versus transactional work. You're at least trying to have both sides win. Sometimes, depending on how petty the lawyers can get, some person might not win all the time, but you know, we try to.
Yeah, thank you for sharing and explaining the transactional side. And I think one question I hear a lot, aside from what's the difference between criminal and civil, what's the difference between transactional and litigation, is what is the difference, the major differences between working for what we call big law firm? You might hear the term big law. For example, Reem works for Haynes and Boone, which Haynes and Boone is considered a big law firm. And then Huma, you work for, I guess what would be considered more of a medium-sized law firm?
A mid-sized regional law firm.
A mid-sized regional law firm. And before you worked for what we call a boutique law firm, right?
Correct. And so I would, oh, go ahead.
No, and so your experience, you know, what do you think is the biggest difference, whether you pros, cons or not, between working for something like a mid-size or a boutique or a big law firm?
So I love the boutique and mid-size model because you get a lot of hands-on experience. So when I started at my last job, which was a boutique litigation firm, there was 4 attorneys. So I worked directly under one of the partners, and I got to do all the drafting. I was involved in all the hearings. I sat second chair on 2 trials, and that was within the first 3 years of my practice as a commercial litigator. And I know hands down, I would not have gotten that valuable experience anywhere else. So I love the boutique model just because you get such good substantive experience because, you know, there's not as many associates. So, you know, all the work gets handed down to you. And my boss was a partner at Winstead and then he left to, well, my former boss, he was a partner at Winstead and he left, started his own firm. So he had a great book of business and very interesting clients. So I love the complexity and just getting to be so hands-on. Mid-size, same thing. So at Munch, I get to have a lot of client interaction. I get to do a lot of substantive work, which is my favorite part of this job, drafting motions, interacting with clients. And so I feel like the mid-size and boutique law firms are perfect for me.
Great, thank you for sharing and explaining that. And Lauren, for you, we've heard about boutique, mid-size, and also we know about the big law firms, but you have what we call a solo practice, is that right?
Yes, I
So
do.
help us explain to us, I mean, that means you wear probably every hat that there is. You're a litigator, you're transactional, you're the accountant, you're all kinds of things. You really have to juggle it all. So kind of explain to the audience like how a solo practice works and what you enjoy about it and kind of some of the different things that you face every day as in a solo practice.
Yeah, I think I want to touch a little bit on this litigator versus transactional piece because I think that's an interesting thing for somebody that's considering law. And what I think is so fun about family law is we kind of get both of that. Like we do get in the courtroom a lot. We have what's called temporary order hearings at the very beginning of a divorce case. If there's a custody issue or if there's some issue about property or if somebody won't get out of the house and there's something that, you know, that can't be resolved immediately that really needs to be addressed immediately, we have what's called a temporary order hearing. And so we are in court a lot for those, but we do have to go to mediation. I know the Judge Wallace mentioned that we mediate a lot. So I'm also negotiating. And so we're doing a lot, like Reem was talking about, you know, negotiating, trying to get the best deal and trying to really get a win-win if we can for these families. But I also have a transactional side of my practice, which is premarital agreements. When people are thinking about getting married, maybe they have, some family money that they need to protect, or a business they need to protect, or possibly they're getting married for again, and they have reasons that they want to protect their assets or protect an estate for children they've already had. So I do quite a bit of that work too, where I am drafting contracts that are between people that are planning to get married. And so the best thing about my practice, I love having my own firm. I've had my own firm and I've also been with the firm, and there's pros and cons to both of that. It takes a little bit of the pressure off when you're with a firm and you don't have to, be everything and all these hats like you mentioned. But also, I'm my own boss, and my boss and I see eye to eye on everything, good or bad or indifferent. She can be pretty cool, and then she can be kind of, she makes me work, because if we don't work, we don't, make money. But I love my job because I really get to work with people who are in crisis. When they come to me, unless it's a premarital agreement, but most of my work is divorce work, custody work, and people come to me and they are broken and they do not sometimes see a path forward, and it's hard for them to think clearly. And I love taking that person and walking them through the system and getting them on their new path moving forward. And so family law in particular is very people oriented. It's very emotional. So, if you're not into that, because there's so many other practices of law, areas of law, then I get it. But if you're a person that can sit with people that are crying about their children, or can sit with people about crying about their husband having a girlfriend, but really wanting to help walk them through the process, it's a super rewarding area.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've dealt with some of the craziest criminal cases ever, and I still don't think I could do family law. So hats off to you and all family lawyers that really, are there with your clients and getting them through these hard moments. Speaking of people in crisis and needing lawyers, Nicole, in your practice as a criminal defense lawyer, I think it's fair to say that when people come to you, just like Lauren, they are in a situation, a crisis of their own. And you also have your own, or a small practice, is my understanding. And so how do you handle running a practice while also dealing with constant crisis mode type cases?
It's a really good question. And listening to, each of the lawyers here talk about, and the judge talking about the different people that you interact with. I mean, a lot of times by the time you come to a lawyer, even when you're doing transactional work, I mean, you're not making cupcakes. They're not coming to you to celebrate some wonderful occasion, and I would guess that's true even for Reem. You're really dealing with people who, if it's a contract about the sale of a business, or, if it's, civil litigation, you're dealing with intense emotions. And it's really especially true a lot of times for criminal law. And I can't tell you, it doesn't happen as much anymore, but, I have a lot of people who come to me and, right off the bat, they don't know my other clients because we don't publish our other clients, but they say, I'm not like your other clients. I don't, I'm not a criminal, So it's really funny, to see people process, what it's like to be in the criminal justice system and facing, consequences of maybe not only just losing all your money or all of what you own and what you've worked for, but potentially your freedom and your reputation. And so it can require a lot of communication. And, I've seen some of the questions here in the chat, they're really great questions. How do you learn about becoming a lawyer? I mean, really you're learning in all of these fields, I think, about being a communicator. For Judge Wallace, half of the people who walk out the doors of her courtroom are going to be mad because, they're not getting what they wanted. And a lot of times it's true too, for each of the other fields that you're hearing here. And I think that if you're looking at potentially clerking somewhere and you think you might be interested in a particular area of the law, you can now get on Google and you can start looking around for law firms that do that, and send over a resume, or contact and see if they're looking for someone. We have even employed high school students and college students to do things like running, and I think that with taking documents from one place to another is what I mean by running, but picking up discovery. you, by being around people who do this, will see all kinds of things. You will see people that you want to be just like. You will see people that you don't want to be anything like. And they're all potentially lawyers, you know, and judges and colleagues. So a great way to do it is to get in there and see what you like.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that, especially in the age of COVID, right, where when we were all in law school or when we were all interning or clerking, we were in the office. We met the people we were working with. And we had, you know, a happy hour for a women's networking event, or we had all these kinds of events and things to go to. And obviously in the COVID area, it's a little bit different. And so I would encourage, and all the panels I've been a part of throughout the year of COVID, every lawyer that I've talked to has said, send me a LinkedIn invite, send me a notice, send me a message. Hey, you know, I'm considering doing this kind of law. Do you know any opportunities for me? Can you point me in the direction? I think all of us can agree that not only being, you know, female lawyers, but also sometimes first generational lawyers, is that it all started with reaching out somewhere to someone and somebody reaching back out to us. And I know, you know, personally, every lawyer on this panel has reached out to a lawyer needing an opportunity and also reached back to a lawyer who was asking for an opportunity. So it's something that's completely normal. You shouldn't feel shy about. As my grandma used to say, closed mouths don't get fed. Right? So take the initiative and really reach out, or like Nicole said, get to know someone who practices in that area of law and just be around them and kind of see if it's for you and what other opportunities might be available. Judge Wallace, one thing Nicole mentioned that's part of your job is not only seeing all different kinds of lawyers, right? Because you're a judge, so you see defense, you see, and you do, as a judge, you're doing civil and criminal, right? So you see literally every kind of lawyer in front of you on a daily basis, which means you have a lot on your plate, and that's stressful. And that takes a lot of ability to balance not only different areas of law, but also balance your emotions with the law and everything. So how is it that you kind of manage your day-to-day stress and maintain, you know, positive mental health and all those things with your position?
Yeah, there's no one answer for that. My court in Fort Bend County, the county courts are what's called general jurisdiction courts. So I literally have 5 different areas of law that I cover. I do juvenile, I do criminal, I do civil up to $100,000 in damages, and I do probate, which is wills, trusts, estates, guardianships, and we hear mental health commitment hearings. So any given day in my courtroom looks different, and they are all busy. So it is a lot of stress, and it's a lot of demand. I often tell my family members when I get home at the end of the day, the worst question you can ask me is what's for dinner, because at that point I will have already made 587 decisions. And so if you're asking me to make one more, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't even know. Like, just pick something. It doesn't matter to me. But that is truly what judges do. We make decisions all day long, and we can't make these decisions on a whim. We can't make them on an emotion. We can't make them just because that's what I said and that's why it's going to go down like that. We can't do that. Everything that we do, every decision that we make has to be based on the law. We have to follow the law. That's the oath that we took. And it's an oath that I take very seriously. And so that means we have to educate ourselves. If you can see these files behind me, and on the other side of the desk that you can't see are all the books that I have, because I have to constantly educate myself. I can expect the lawyers to educate me on their side of the argument, so that I can rule in their favor. But what I expect of myself is to know everything that the law says on that particular issue. And so that requires that I spend some time in research, and then I spend some time in study, and I take that very seriously. But I have to have a balance. Like I can't be in this office all day long and not get up and take a walk, and not step away from my computer and take a break. And that's just not me as a judge. That is for every woman, or every human really. in any industry, you have to have that work-life balance. And so one of the ways that I achieve that is just by relationships. I have relationships with other lawyers, so I can talk about legal issues. I have relationships with other judges because being a judge is actually kind of lonely. I can't talk to my lawyer friends the way I used to because some of them have cases in my court. I can't discuss certain things with my lawyer friends because some of it is confidential and I can't discuss it as a judge. But I can have those conversations with my judge friends. So developing those relationships, whether you are a judge or a lawyer or an intern or a clerk, talk to other clerks, because not only are you going to be able to vent, you're going to be able to bounce ideas off of people. You're going to be able to say, hey, so I'm thinking about this and it's kind of, I'm going over it in my head. Tell me if this makes sense. But you're also going to be able to have to celebrate the ups of the perks of your job and say, hey, I got this really cool case I want to tell you about. And you're also just going to be able to normalize some stuff. Like, is it normal for me to feel like this? Is it okay? And your friend will either say, yeah, I do that all the time, or I think like that all the time, or they're going to go, no, you're a little bit off on that. And you might want to check what you're drinking. What are you doing over there? Because that's crazy, Toni. So it's just a good way for you to have that balance. I spend time with my family. I have a husband and 3 kids. I'm a baseball mom. You will find me on a baseball. That's my happy place, is in a rocking chair on the foul line off of third base. That is my happy place, just watching my kid play baseball. So, but you have to involve other things in your life that have nothing to do with law so that you can have that balance, and the stress will be there. It is really just how you deal with it and how you navigate your way through it that will make or break you, because the stress isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all of us on this panel can say that stress is always present in this. And I think it's because, like Lauren and Nicole were saying, that you're dealing with people who are in really crisis situations, whether it be transactional or whether it be criminal or civil, whatever the issue is they're coming to you with a problem to solve. And that creates stress. But like Judge Wallace said, that also means we understand each other and what we're going through, and we can be a system of support for one another. And I think that's one thing that at least I've learned throughout my career and practice is having that support is so incredibly crucial, particularly having female support, because several of the panel members are not just lawyers, they're wives, they're mothers, they're business owners, they're baseball coaches, they're cheerleading coaches, they're volleyball coaches. They're all kinds of different hats you have to wear, and so having that support is just so important, and knowing that you're not really in it alone. Nicole, what things outside of law do you make sure to do for your own self-care or mental health well-being that keep you sharp in your practice, but also a little bit of normalcy in your personal life?
Yeah, and I was feeling bad because I think you tried to ask me that a minute ago and I kind of got off target, but it is super important. We kind of get used to putting ourselves last, especially when people come to you with just devastating problems. And you think about them. When you lay down to go to sleep, you're still rolling through the problem, trying to solve it for these people because it's so meaningful. And if you never turn it off, you will never be fully effective. I have 3 kids also, and I had to learn, and it took me years to actually put my kids on the calendar, which sounds absurd, but to make sure that I get to the things that they have, because otherwise you can sit at your desk and sit writing that motion until 2 in the morning and it'll all be gone. The other thing is when there's vacation time, you take it and you turn off the cell phone and you turn off the email and you do things that bring you joy, and it gives you more energy to come back and help that client who does have an incredibly complicated and terrible problem on their hands. It helps you pour that energy back in to that person's case, and you're not foggy on it anymore, and you can get perspective. If you don't have perspective, you can't help your client have perspective, and you can't help a court or a jury understand perspective either. So you got to take care of yourself. And that means being fit, going out and do exercise that you enjoy, eating well. Lawyers are known to have, unfortunately, they can get absorb people's problems and have substance abuse problems. You can get to drinking because it's so sad and upsetting what you're hearing. And so stressful. You can get to, doing things that are not healthy. You have to be mindful that, there's a huge support system out there, and to rely on that, and to not be shy about asking for help when you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that we've all either seen someone experience throughout our career, or maybe have experienced ourselves. And so to understand it's normal and it's okay, and to really reach out and pursue those support systems is really great. Reem and Huma, you guys both work in mid-sized to large law firms, and it used to be that, for a female going into a big firm like that, it was okay, well, once you have kids, then you can no longer do this, or, there's not partner tracks for women or anything like that. And now so much of it has changed, and hopefully will continue to change and evolve and be progressive and allow opportunities for women. But can each of you kind of talk about the experience of being a female in a large or mid-sized firm where you're trying to climb up the ladder, while also still being able to be a wife or a mom or be involved in other activities outside of the law?
Sure. Reem, do you mind if I start? So my firm is committed to promoting women. So they have a parental leave policy that allows women 12 weeks of maternity leave, and there's a ramp up and a ramp down period. We also have groups such as a women's initiative group where it's an open platform for women to discuss these type of issues, whether it be, issues that are saying with promotions or work-life balance. So it's a very big part of the culture here. So I feel like for me and for, women at this firm, there's plenty of opportunity to be able to be partner and still have that work-life balance. And you don't have to worry about motherhood and, being an inhibitor to becoming a partner one day. So it's very much a part of the discussion here, and all the partners are on board with helping women be promoted. So I love that.
Yeah, that's really great to see. I have a friend who's in-house general counsel with a very large tech company, and recently their initiative is, if they're looking to hire any outside counsel to handle any of their litigation matters, their first look is to firms that have women and minorities in partner and leadership positions. So it's really good to see not only firms like yours pushing that and creating those opportunities and highlighting that, but also businesses recognizing that it's really important to push minority and women owned, run, involved firms to really push business to them. Reem, what about you being in a big law firm? How are the opportunities for women, and what is the partner track and things like that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I really echo what Huma said. We have a lot of the same. So we have, a great maternity leave policy where we also have, the ramp up and ramp down to make sure that, people don't have to work while they're having maternity leave, but also not missing opportunities. When at every level of your law career, you're learning new skills each time. It's not just once you start, you learn everything at the same time. And so women, when you have a kid, you almost have to, there's almost a juggle in your head where you're like, oh, if I'm taking this amount of time off for maternity leave, does that mean I'm going to be missing this amount of training, and am I going to be behind everyone else? It's a concern that's always going to be there, unfortunately. But the firm really tries to do our best to make sure that that's not the case. Anytime you miss, you're going to be able to have all those opportunities come back. Any chance that you want it there, you're going to have the chance to learn anything that you miss. Everyone's going to make sure that you are learning what you need to be learning at the time that you need to be learning it, so that you're not behind just because you had a kid. And there's mentorship opportunities. We have a lot of women as partners, and on the board of directors of our firm as well, because as everyone knows, it's important to have women making those decisions. You can't move any sort of needle forward if women are not the ones actually making decisions at the highest levels. So yeah, I'm happy to say that my firm is really good and really trying to make sure that everyone has the equal opportunity to move forward, and that women in particular are being represented. And, you know, we also have a women's committee that can voice any concerns that we have, whether it be from, you know, any concerns in terms of hiring and partnership and leadership roles, but also small things in terms of like day-to-day office things that you wouldn't think of. You know, how is a woman who is now breastfeeding because she's just had a child going to be in the office and live in the office in an organic way that doesn't disrupt herself and her work that she needs to get done. So, you know, I think firms probably couldn't say this. I don't even know, you know, probably even 10 years ago. But I think everyone's really trying to make a big effort to make sure that that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree. I'm pretty sure everyone on this panel can attest to their own observation or experiences of the evolving efforts that the legal profession and firms and businesses are really trying to make to accommodate for everyone. Because at the end of the day, it's not about being a man or a woman. It's just about equal opportunity, inclusion of diversity, and supporting those different aspects. Because just like, you know, Reem said, is you need a woman at the top to help make these decisions, but you also need people with different diverse backgrounds, different cultural associations, different religious, you know, feelings about things. I mean, the whole idea of having a well-rounded profession and a well-rounded firm is to have people that come from various backgrounds and understandings. And one thing I've seen too, and I'm sure you guys can all attest to, is paternity leave, right? Because there's men in the audience too as well. And paternity leave is, there's an understanding that it's not just the mother that needs to be home and bond with the child initially, and for other reasons, obviously, but that also it's important that men have that opportunity to take that time and be there with their child and supportive of the wife. Yes, Judge Wallace.
I just want to add one thing. I think that what Huma and Reem have brought up sound like lovely programs that have been implemented in their firms, but the reality is that that's not the way it is for every woman and in every firm and in every industry. And so what I really I just want to give the flip side of that coin, which is I know women, and I have been the woman who has been discriminated against, whether it was for the color of my skin or my gender or both. It exists. We are not working in a field that, unfortunately, it is not dominated by women. It is dominated by white men. And so you will face it, and sometimes it's overt and it's very clear, and sometimes it is micro aggressive and it's a little harder to see. What I will tell you, if you are, it doesn't matter how old you are, high school, college, if you are already in your professional career, when you feel it in your gut, that's what it is. Don't ignore that. Don't shy away from it. Engage it. Call it out for what it is. You will be in certain situations where, whether it's a man or sometimes another woman, they will acknowledge it and they will say, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you in that way." You know, and they will be genuine and sincere about it. But there are certain situations where they know exactly what they're doing. I have had counsel from the bench mansplain something to me as a judge, and I literally went, did he just say what I think he said? And my clerk was sitting next to me and she was like, "Yeah, that's what just happened." So it transcends levels. It doesn't matter who you are or where you are. When you see it and you know what it is, call it out for what it is. Let that person know how they made you feel in that moment. Don't ignore that, and by all means speak up, because the woman that comes behind you in that office or in that courtroom will appreciate the fact that you stood up for yourself, because it will help her in the next situation or the next circumstance to do the same. So while I applaud the programs and the diversity efforts that are being made in all of the different firms and the different agencies, governmental agencies and private firms, I think that's wonderful. We still have a ways to go. And so I don't want any woman who's watching this panel right now to think, oh, we made it, we're good. It's never going to happen again. It happens every day. It probably happened about 10 times today to any one of us on this panel right now, or anybody who's watching. So it's still happening. But I think that as we as women encourage each other, listen and support each other, it will make being able to navigate in this male dominated field so much easier. So I couldn't let that moment slide without everybody just kind of kumbaya into the sunset, because it's just not the reality of what we face on a daily basis in our various roles.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in and say I'm glad you said that, Judge Wallace, because I didn't realize that. Yeah, we were painting a very rosy picture before, and you know, as much as there are a lot of committees and stuff that are trying to be done, and I think very well. I think, you know, I personally have never felt you know, any sort of discriminated against, at least overtly and intentionally. There is still in other people who are not taking it as seriously or whatever, there's always going to be that layer of, you know, sexism that's out in the world. And even now, I'm on several deals where I am the only girl that's on the deal. There have been several times in several rooms in negotiations where I've been, you know, the only female that's in the room and the only person who has the voice. And so there are also going to be different ways that people deal with things. And again, they're not overt in my firm, at least, and I can't say this for every firm, but in my firm, at least, there are never any overt people who are discriminating against women or people of color, but like attracts like, I guess. So there are going to be some unconscious opportunities that, you know, men may have because a partner sees themselves in this associate who happens to be a male also, because there are going to be more, at this time, more male partners than they are going to be female partners. And so there might be opportunities that you might miss out on because someone relates more to the male associate than to you. And you will be, you know, you'll have to work a little bit harder to put your name out there. So all that is to say, I'm glad you said that as well as Matt. I do agree that we have still a long way to go.
Absolutely, I agree completely.
Yeah, Judge Wallace, I'm glad you said that as well. I mean, I know in the, like we've all said, it's kind of the law profession is still a male-dominated world for various reasons. And as much as we're all trying to take strides and efforts to change that, it's still got a long way to go. And I can tell you, I'm sure Nicole and Lauren, you can speak to this as well, criminal law. You know, and Judge Wallace, you've seen it at being on a criminal bench. Most of the lawyers are men, and on both sides, government and private, and most of the judges, who especially who have been in the judge positions for a while, they're men too. And so Nicole or Lauren, how do you deal with those kinds of situations when faced with them?
Lauren, do you want to go and I'll jump in?
Well, I'll let you take the lead on this because I am in a very unique situation where family law really is female dominated. I mean, really, I think it was one of the first areas where women really, and I had some amazing trailblazers that I can thank in Harris County that did this. So I'm going to pass the baton to Nicole because I think we have women judges that are fabulous. We have lawyers that are fabulous. I think it is the one area that we truly are rocking it, but.
Yes.
That's fantastic. I love hearing that. That is great. I mean, and I would say, I think we're all rocking it in our own fields, but I can tell you, I bet Jenna, especially now doing a lot of the federal work. I mean, how many times, a lot of times federal cases, for those of you who may not be familiar, you know, there's a lot of, you know, cases that involve many defendants. You have, you know, you can have a conspiracy and then maybe 50 people in some cases are charged with the same crime in some small way, whether it's a, you know, some sort of a white collar crime, which is a financial type crime, or, you know, say a drug case. And, you know, Jenna, I bet you've had this experience where you are the only woman standing in a sea of people back when we actually stood in the courtroom before COVID, and they're all men, you know, sometimes it's even the
agents too.
The agents, yeah.
Law enforcement agents, federal agents, yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, sometimes I you know, I'm mystified when I look around and I see that that's the case. On the other hand, you know, I want to just sort of point out to you, you just keep doing your thing. You know, this is true. Again, I keep seeing the questions about the clerkships, and I've had the opportunity to have some really great clerks come through our office and see them work. And there are two ways that it can be done, really. One is, you know, someone comes and they are just really using it as an opportunity to learn, which is fantastic. We want to help. We want to be mentors, and we want to teach the people that come through. But the ones that really have stood out for us in our practice are clerks who come in and say, what can I do? You know, and then there's no job too small. You know, you come in and they've turned on the coffee machine, or they've, you know, set out some projects to do, you know, so you don't have to have some special legal background to make yourself valuable at the place that you want to learn from. You know, and for us, you know, those clerks that have taken initiative to show how they can shine, you know, because I know, Jenna, you can tell me when you walk into that room and there's that sea of men, you know, around, you know, it can make you recoil. You know, maybe I don't want to be so shiny here because I don't really want anybody to notice me. But there's an opportunity for you to be you in that. And that's true for you people considering clerkships. You know, how can I show who I am? Because everybody's different and unique, and there's something, you know, special about you, and you can show that firm, you know, a little bit about you while you're learning some great new skills and who you want to be, whether that's a lawyer or not.
Yeah, and I think your comment, Nicole, that be authentically you in your law school, in your undergrad, in your, you know, don't adjust who you are, what you enjoy, your passions, your interests, just because you think you need to fit into some type of mold or some type of area of law or some type of practice of law. I think we can all really say that there are so many areas, so many ways to get where you need to be. And the best thing about it is bringing your authentic self with you. And only when you're your authentic self will you truly shine in any situation. Lawyers are not robots. We're just not. And you can walk into a law firm and 10 people have the exact same title and they do things in their own 10 different ways with their own 10 different personalities, no matter how they look or where they came from or what school they went to. It's all very different. Nicole,
Jenna, when I was in law school, there was a young lady who shall remain nameless because she's a practicing lawyer in Jefferson County right now. We're actually still good friends. But when she would raise her hand in class, the whole class would collectively groan like, oh, here we go again. And she would ask every question. But when she finished asking her questions, the whole classroom that collectively groaned were also actively taking notes on what the answers were, because she was asking the questions that either we didn't know we had or we were too scared to ask. Mm-hmm. So that whole thing, Nicole, about being your authentic self, do not back down. One of my favorite quotes is that the quote that says, what is your greatest fear? And it's not that you're inadequate. Your greatest fear is that you're great, and that don't let your light dim, because when you allow your light to shine, you give other people permission to allow their lights to shine too. So don't ever dim your light for somebody else. Ask that question. Be the annoying person in the room. Raise your hand one more time. I need one more. Do that, because you are allowing, subconsciously, you're allowing others to unleash what's inside of them as well, because you're allowing yourself to be real and genuine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Nicole, you kind of touched on this about, going and getting those clerking and internship opportunities. But aside from the areas we've talked about it, and I'll kind of open this up to everyone, where can, future law students, current law students, hopeful lawyers find these opportunities, right? Because when we were in school, and obviously way before COVID, there were job fairs and people came and did interviews on site. I mean, in law school, we had interviews happening on campus where law firms would send recruiters to the campus to do these types of interviews. And now it's just completely different. It's a completely different world. So what are some places or some ways you guys can suggest that aspiring lawyers or law students look to find these opportunities or to establish these networks or connections? I know I said, and I completely stand by, that LinkedIn is great. If you don't, young people love social media, but they think LinkedIn is like the not cool social media. Well, guess what? It's very cool social media because it is an open marketplace to establish relationships and connections. And, you know, especially in a world where so many things are taking place virtually, do not hesitate to, you know, connect with someone you see that has a job that you might want to do or you hope to do, and send them a message and say, let's grab a virtual coffee, right? They can do it from their kitchen. They can do it from their living room. They can do it with whatever in their time. And they may have opportunities for you, or they may say, hey, I know somebody who's looking for an intern or a clerk. So aside from kind of just like a LinkedIn reaching out, what are some suggestions you guys have for students of where they can find other opportunities?
The one thing I didn't know about until I was a lawyer is that judges have clerkships. Like, so if you went, like, I would have loved to have clerked for a family law judge as a law student. That would have been the perfect job for me. And so I think that if you're interested in an area of law or interested in maybe being a judge someday, and you have no idea and want to know what a courtroom's all about, I think that's a great way. And then a great opportunity. Another thing is just, do you know a lawyer? And even if it's not a lawyer that does the practice that you want, there's a big network, you know, and if you just go to a lawyer friend and say, you know, I'm interested in law, this is what I'm thinking about, do you know anybody? So don't be afraid to ask. I mean, when people call me and want to talk about family law, even if I don't know them, I've never said no. So I just want you to have the courage to do that. And so just think about your network now and how that could lead to introductions.
Yeah, and once you're in law school, every law school has a career center and a career counselor program, and their whole job is to help you navigate finding opportunities and internships and clerkships, and where to go online to apply, what phone number to call to, or where to mail your stuff to, depending. And so once you're in law school, don't be concerned that those opportunities won't be presented to you. They will be. But again, they take initiative, and you have to step out of your comfort zone and initiate them. I know some questions were about high schoolers looking for a legal career. Do you guys have any suggestions or recommendations as to where or how they can find those opportunities? Nicole, I know you said your firm hires them, but how would just a high schooler find out what firms do?
You know, one of the things the reason that we've hired people sometimes over the summer or during a break, you know, to do things for us from high school is that, you know, they reached out and asked, you know, if we had any work that they could do or if they could help in any way. And you know, when we have that space available, we have offered it. Another thing that you can do, it may not be necessarily working for someone, but you might ask a lawyer, can I come with you to whatever it is you do for a day or a couple of days. And then, you know, you put on, you know, a nice, you know, collared shirt for the guys, and, you know, something you can go to court in for the girls, and just tag along and see if you can be helpful. But, you know, just, can I watch? And that's a great way to see if you even like what it is they're doing.
And in this virtual world, it's you have access to a lot more. I have had high school students to log on to my Zoom hearings, and they're off camera. They're on mute, so nobody can see that they're there, and they are just observing and watching and learning. So this virtual world opens up a lot of possibilities for you to engage in some of the things that you might not have been able to do before, because you couldn't get to the courtroom when the hearing was taking place. And then I would also encourage you to think outside the box, right? I mean, there is the Association for Left-Handed Lawyers, right? And they're going to have a meeting, a monthly meeting or a quarterly meeting. So log on or reach out to different kinds of organizations, because that's where the lawyers are meeting. That's where the lawyers reside, right? So reach out to those groups and say, hey, I'm in college, I'm in high school, and I think I want to be a left-handed lawyer one day. what do you got? And I guarantee there's at least one or two left-handed lawyers that will reach out to you and say, hey, come under my wing. Come, let's have a virtual coffee. You can come hang out with me in virtual court tomorrow, and we can talk about all my cases that I presented that day and your thoughts on them. I mean, there are opportunities there, but you got to think outside the box and really reach out and find those possibilities.
Yeah,
I agree.
absolutely.
I think it's simply just telling as many people within your own community, or just reaching out, looking online to see what area of practice you're interested in, see the lawyers in that area, and just email them, say, hey, I'm interested in learning. Most of the time people will like that and they'll respond. And it's a numbers game, so just let as many people know as possible.
So an interesting thing that I've just gotten involved with is the Greater Houston Women's Chamber of Commerce has a mentorship program, and I actually have a mentee right now who is at U of H, and she's a freshman, and she's interested in immigration law. And so through my conversations with her, I've introduced her to, yesterday we had a conversation with an immigration lawyer, trying to get her to talk to an immigration judge. And so, that's another fun thing, that maybe you get a mentor and then kind of talk about your career goals and dreams and take it from there.
Yeah, I think that mentorship is key. I would not be where I am today if it weren't for I have several mentors. That you don't just have one, you have several, and they're in different practices. And sometimes you reach out to them crying and don't know what to do. I've had some sit down and make my 5 and 10 year professional paths and then help me along the way. What opportunities should I be looking at? Which one should I take? And then it's a whole network of people that can, if you're applying to a firm or applying to a position and they know someone there, they're going to pick up the phone and say, hey, Jenna's my person. I vouch for her. She's great. Consider her. And that might be something that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten the opportunity for without that. We're running out of time. There is one question that I want to, that came in from the audience that I want to make sure we cover, because we haven't talked about it too much, is, what is the pay for a lawyer? I mean, everyone on this panel I know is very different, right? Because some of us work in government. It's not a lot. It's never going to be a lot. That's not why you go into government. And you just know that going in. And then on the private side, it's different because it depends on, what size firm and all that kind of stuff. So I think if we could just kind of give a little bit to the audience about what to expect when it comes to surviving on your salary versus paying back debt and things like that. This is open to anyone. And I will say to the audience that we do it every day. It's not fun having that debt, but obviously we are here. We're continuing to love and enjoy our practice in our life. And every lawyer I know pretty much has debt. There's very few that don't. And I know lawyers that make a wide range of salary, and none of them are having their souls crushed by Sally Mae, or, I'm still waiting for Sally Mae to be taken away in a hurricane or something, because then my debt goes away. But there are also, there's loan forgiveness, there's through government work, there's different ways. And sometimes debt in law school, everyone says, oh, it's good debt, which I used to think that's not a thing. But it actually is. And there's opportunities for first-time home buyers that if your debt is from a professional school or degree, it's considered differently. Through lawyer working for the government, there's different ways to secure mortgages and loans for government lawyers. So there's a lot of different ways, but I'm going to stop talking. Someone else answer about how you kind of handle or what to expect when it comes to salary and debt.
So my answer is a little bit easier because I am in the quote big law area, and you can find the salary, at least for starting rate, a lot of it is online. And so a resource that I had used whenever I was looking up different law firms is vault.com, and they give you a lot of information on various firms and what their starting salaries are, and sometimes even what salaries are at each level of every year that you're there.
And Reem, can you spell that? Because I'm going to put it in the chat so that everyone has it. What was it?
Sure, it's vault.com.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, yeah, a lot of those, for the big law firms, you can see what those starting salaries are. So it was helpful. And a lot of them are based off of market too. So in big law, they try to stay like competitive so that they can get certain talent. And so when this happened, I think a couple of summers ago, whenever I first started, when one firm bumps their salary up for their first year associates, then all the firms are like, oh no, we have to do the same thing in order to keep ourselves competitive as well. So yeah, all that is to say is that it can change as well. But those are pretty standard and have stayed relatively the same for many years.
And for most government jobs, because it's open information, it's public information, you can actually request any one of our salaries. We're an open book. So there are ways you can go if you want to know what it is for a district attorney's office as a prosecutor. It's a little bit different depending on the county because of whatever the county resources are. And honestly, it's changed over time with regards to being on the government side. Anyone else have any thoughts or suggestions about kind of the financial aspect of it?
Yeah, my salary is public knowledge. It's on the website, portlandcountytx.gov. You can find it and you can see how much I'm taking home every month.
And I think as far as debt goes, I think it's fair to say, and I don't know, I've been out of law school for a while now, but I think on average, most people come out with, anywhere from 75 to 120,000. I don't know if anyone Reem, you've been in law school more recently, if that's different now.
I think it depends on which school you go to also. Like if you're going to a public law school versus a private, because obviously a private law school is gonna be a little bit pricier. So I think that that's a factor as well. But what Jenna's saying is spot on. I know very few attorneys that don't carry some level of debt once they graduate from law school. But hey, that's your motivator, that's your fire, that's your incentive to show up and do your job and do it well because you've got these bills to pay. It's a bill just like any other, right? And so it certainly is not put aside because that can have its own set of consequences, but it's one that you navigate through and you work into whatever your lifestyle is. And there are programs that you can enter into, even with Sallie Mae or Navient, or I don't know all the names of all the different companies, but they will work with you on the payback side, and they will work with you with your payments. If you hit hard times, they will work with you to defer your payments for a little while. There's all sorts of ways. So don't let the fear of the debt stop you from fulfilling whatever your purpose is in the legal field, because it's manageable. It is not something that, like Jenna said, it's not going to crush you. It's certainly not going to prevent you from being able to succeed in your industry. But it will be something that you will have to manage and something that you will have to budget and make sure that you take care of it in the appropriate way.
Yeah. Nicole, were you going to say something else?
Just real quickly, I know we're out of time. If you're thinking of going into solo practice, do what you love. Find what inspires you, and the money will follow. It really will. I mean, there are people making money in fields that your parents told you that doesn't pay very well, and they're making lots of it. And the reason is because they love what they do, and they're inspired, and then the business comes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you that I've worked for civil and made great money, and I've worked in government and made not much money, but at the end of the day, the money didn't matter. It was just whether I enjoyed what I was doing. And people who do make so much money and don't enjoy it, they're not happy, and they won't tell you that they're happy either, especially in law. The legal career has so many opportunities and so many great things that can come of it, that don't sell yourself short by doing something you think you have to do for a certain salary, or that you have to do because it's what looks good or is prestigious. Any avenue in the law is prestigious. Any avenue in the law looks good and will be fulfilling if it's what you truly enjoy, and you'll be a better lawyer because you're passionate about it. Right? When we have to do things we don't want to do, how great are we at it? I mean, laundry sits forever at my house. So not my best and not something I enjoy doing. So, you know, think about that when making these decisions and really understand that we've all been there. We're all going to keep being there. There's great opportunities out there. Reach out to women, reach out to lawyers, pursue what it is you want, be yourself while doing it, and don't let anyone or anything tell you it's not possible. The only person that can tell you it's not possible is yourself, and you shouldn't do it.
You know, there's one last question. I just want to touch it because I think it's a good one. She said, can anyone talk more about funding a law program, especially for a woman who does not have any family support but has a lot of responsibilities? I know for a fact at South Texas College of Law, they have a part-time program. So you don't, you know, most people, when they think they have to go to law school, it's a full-time, you're in class all day, every day, you know, Monday through Friday. South Texas, and I think there may be one other school locally that does this as well, so correct me if I'm wrong, but South Texas has a part-time program. It takes longer, but you can take classes at night. So you can go to school, go to work during the day and then take night classes at South Texas, and you can earn a law degree. It takes a little bit longer, but it's possible to do that. So just like with anything else, where there's a will, there's a way, ladies. And if anything, the common denominator in every woman that I've ever met is when somebody told her that she couldn't do it, she found a way to make it happen. And that's just what we do. That's how we are programmed. And so if you want to be a lawyer, but you have other responsibilities, they will work with you. They will help you to schedule that law school education that fits into your life, and you'll be rewarded for it at the end. So go for it. I say go for it.
Yeah, thank you for grabbing that question, Judge Wallace. We're about out of time. If there's no other questions that come through, I just want to thank our panelists. You guys are all incredible in your respective areas through your entire career, and for sharing your time with us today. We really appreciate it. Hopefully the audience has benefited from it. And I know that you all join me in saying that, just as Judge Wallace did, that just go for it. Where there's a will, there's a way. Figure it out. Pick up the phone and call a lawyer and ask them what they did. Go to a courthouse and watch a proceeding. Reach out on LinkedIn. Go set up an interview at a law school and talk to a career counselor. There's so many different ways. And I know that everyone on this panel will support any one of you in pursuing them, whether it be now or hopefully later when we see you on this side of the bar. We're happy to do that as well. So thank you, panelists, so much for your time and your energy and all of your great and sound advice. We all really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.